Come on to learn and grow. Welcome to the Village Talk Show. Come on to learn and grow. Welcome to the Village Talk Show. We discuss what people need to know, empowering them to learn and grow. We discuss what people need to know, empowering them to learn and grow. Give praises to Jehovah, from whom all blessing and knowledge will flow. Blessing and knowledge will flow. The Village Talk Show, dedicating to empowering the community to live a healthy, safe, and financially capable life, helping each one of us in realizing our dream at any age, any point, starting from today, day. Success. Come on to learn and grow. Welcome to the Village Talk Show. Come on to learn and grow. Welcome to the Village Talk Show. We discuss what people need to know, empowering them to learn and grow. We discuss what people need to know, empowering them to learn and grow. Success is not spoken, it is done. Success is done. Come on now. The Village Talk Show. Talk Show. The Village Talk Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Village Radio Talk Show. Really excited to be here. Special lot of good things. We're coming close to the end of April. We have a couple more days left. This weekend is the last weekend. There are a lot of things that we want to talk about, so just very excited. I am Roderick Daly. I am the host of the Village Radio Talk Show. Joining me is our co-host, Dr. John Sampson, and to my left right here, I guess is to the right on the screen, is our co-hostess, Dr. Joanne Bryant. Just really excited to be part of this excellent program. We're dedicated to empowering the community to live a healthy, safe, and financially capable life through education. Helping each one of us in realizing our dreams at any age, at any point, starting from today. That's John. Right, starting from today. So where success is not just spoken, it is done. And so I'm so very excited. Just another day, everything that's happening, some sad news. But before we get anything else, let's have our co-hostess and our co-host say hello and introduce yourself. Her favorite line.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Hey, John, you're muted.
Good evening to Dr. Daly, Dr. Bryant, and welcome to our village listeners. So, why did Don Lemon get fired?
You cried too much.
No, it's in an article.
But before we start off with Don Lemon, I would love to, before we do that, because I think that's a very important conversation, make sure that we pay homage and tribute to two this week. We lost two people. One of them I revered, the other one I watched. And I smile like everybody else. But let's start with Jerry Springer. Today, at age 79, he lost his life, his battle. He had a short illness and he lost his life today at 79 years old. And so with a brief illness. And, he revitalized television and talk show, right? He presented a model, which I think a lot of us, well, I don't use that one, but it's actually a reality, which is television should not be a role model for anyone. What they do on their show is bring out what really is happening in society in America.
Hmm.
So it's not, he wasn't trying to tell people what to do, how to do, but he was saying, hey, this is really what's happening around you. These are real people with these behaviors. And not to mention, I enjoyed a couple of those Jerry Springer's videos, off the air videos. I enjoyed a few of those, John, back in the 90s and the early 2000s. I don't know. But, just playing true. I love all of the craziness. I'm like, if I ever got that phone call that I'm going to be on Jerry Springer, I will kill the person who it has invited me to be on the Jerry Springer show. That ain't never going to happen. So just paying homage to him first, and let's just do that, and then we. John, any favorite Jerry Springer moment?
No, Jerry Springer, his show was sometimes it could be comical. Sometimes he really had some
Sometimes.
good. Sometimes he had some good issues on it, and it helped me get through law school. That's a break from the constant studying. You look at Springer, no matter what time, you recorded it, you would look at it later. But hey, kudos. It's interesting that he was a former mayor over there. I think
Yeah,
in Cincinnati, he was a former
yeah,
mayor, and really Jerry Springer's talk show started out as being political, meaning talking about political issues, and then it wound up just doing what we have come to really recognize it as, just a show that talked about various issues, but nothing very political.
He actually, for me personally, I think he got more started with "You're Not the Father," right? So Maury Povich came along with "You're Not the Father, You're Not this," but that came sprung from him. Any moments, Dr. Bryant, that you want to bring about from the Jerry Springer show?
No.
Wow, Jerry.
You want to hear the beats?
Oh no.
Yeah,
That's you guys that
No.
like that. No.
We love asking Dr. Bryant these questions because she just stopped there. Let's move on to the next subject. So we're really not, we're gonna do, Dr. Said, we're gonna stop asking Dr. Bryant questions on any opinion because she stops at what did you say? Let's move on. Hopefully on the next subject though, the next person will be lost.
Feel like I'm never
Um,
gonna go home.
The young guy, that lost his life this week, 96 years old. 96 years old. Harry Belafonte, born 1927, and died in 2023. 4 years short of his centennial anniversary. He started, though people, I don't know if anybody do give him credit for that, but he started what's known as Musica Caribeña, right? The Caribbean music, the ska, the calypso, the reggae. So just a little bit of background on Harry Belafonte Jr. And as I started doing some research on him today. His actual last name is Belafonte, T.I. His father is questionable, being Jamaican, and his father migrated here or immigrated here from Jamaica in the early 1900s. And he and his father was a chef, and his mother was a housekeeper. He eventually, he actually went to Wolmer's in Jamaica, Wolmer's boys' school. He went back to Jamaica to go live with his grandparents, his maternal grandparents back in the early 90s. Early 90s, in his early years. So from 1932 to about 1940, he returned to Jamaica where he went to school and he studied. And so it was very exciting to know that there's question about whether his father is from Jamaica. It's very clear that his mother is from Jamaica, but his father, they said, might be also from Martinique. He was a janitor. He was a janitor at early years, and he used to hang out with the big boy, Charleston Heston, Sidney Poitier.
Dr. Martin Luther King.
Well, not at that point yet.
Later on.
Later on, and a big part of the civil rights movement. Miss a day, miss a day, miss a day. Oh, here I come and no one go home. Yeah, no. Was that any good? Any justice, or was that terrible? My cousin always told me how terrible I was when I did that. First, I'm sorry, I didn't say any good evening to our villagers out there. That's my fault. John normally says that, but John didn't say that today. So good evening, my villagers.
Jerry. Okay.
Oh, there's on Jerry show. Yeah. Taking an opportunity to do that. He was young. I didn't realize Jerry was only 79. And,
I thought it was 74.
Yeah.
Imagine how wild the show was, and he still gets celebrated.
Well, well, going back to Jerry Springer, what do you realize in America? Trash.
Yeah.
So.
Trash sells. Garbage sells.
It's extremes too, because if it's super intellectual,
that doesn't sell either.
No, that's what we're looking.
No,
Middle
trash.
ground,
Let me tell you,
middle
in
ground, I
America,
don't usually see sell. If it's
no,
just
only
middle
two
ground.
things sell in America when it comes to media: trash and sex.
And you're saying intellect like stuff up.
Intellectual stuff in America.
I've seen intellectual.
No, it doesn't sell. The reason why it doesn't sell is
maybe less than the trash stuff.
because the average American
drama.
No, the average American doesn't fall into intelligentsia.
Listen, this is the remark of.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that in an insulting.
I guess more so in clarifying.
What I'm saying is like the average American is their B student down, right? Remember, you have to remember something. We're all three of us are in education. You know that only 10% of the students are here. That's what they look at. That's what colleges, a lot of these colleges are 20%. And then as an educator, you teach to the middle. So most of your students, 60-something% of your students fall in the middle between a B average and a C, D average, 60% plus. Then you have the 20% who are going to fail, right? And then you're trying to make that 20% higher. So when you think about a lot of the negative things, the majority of the negative things that happen in society also happens to be in that area as well, right? So most people who are, let's say, top 10% of their class, they're not busy getting into fights. They're not busy getting into these dramas. They're busy into their books. Some of them even watch television. Most of them, they're not even sitting here watching the show, listening to the show. A lot of them don't do that because they're not at that level. So when you really think about it, Love and Hip Hop, right? Love and Hip Hop makes money. Maury, who's, what was it? You Are Not the Father, right? Those shows. Remember, Jerry Springer had a 27-year run on filth. Like literally the bottom of the barrel America. He had a 27-year run on a television show. What Bad Boys, remember Cops? How long that run for? What are they talking about? They're talking about criminals, right? How many of these mastermind criminals were in the top 10% of their class? Not, I wouldn't even say, I don't even think they were 10%.
But you know how Bad Boys came about.
Because of the son, the kidnapping.
No. U.S. Marshal, yes.
Yeah.
But also the work behind with U.S. Marshals.
Yeah, but he started, the guy who did it, I don't remember his name, but he did it because I think either his son was killed or kidnapped or whatever the situation was. But again, we're not saying anything like people are not smart. That's not the point of the conversation. I'm just saying that on average, when you're in school, who are the kids that cause most fights in your school? It's not the top 10% of your school. It's always the majority of the issues are from the bottom 20% of the students academically on the grades. That's what I'm saying.
So the aspect of being entertained.
Yes,
Most people just enjoy entertainment.
yeah,
You
exactly.
know, so
And by the way,
yeah,
not because you're smart or intelligent doesn't mean that you don't enjoy them either,
yeah.
right? Because right,
Just mental
that's
capacity.
but the causal piece, like who is the person that's adding, like you very rarely like you're not going to see somebody who's in the top 10% of class going on trying to recognize on television who's the father of the child. Like that's not common,
Mhm.
right? Something like that on that level. But he brought that out in America, and he made a lot of money on that. Look at Dr. Phil is the opposite, right? Dr. Phil is kind of like he's the intellect, right? Who also made millions. So that would be the opposite
Yeah.
end of what I'm saying,
Mhm.
right? In terms of that. But you think about Maury,
But you know he's really not a medical doctor, right?
I believe he is
He
actually.
is.
Dr. Phil, I think he is actually.
Practicing? He's
I don't
not
know if he
licensed.
practices, but
Yeah.
I believe he is a certified psychologist. He is. I think. Yeah, I think I don't know if he's a clinician, right?
He could give advice. Everything he's doing is advice.
So
It's
doctorate
not-
in
yeah.
psychology.
Huh?
Not a doctorate
Right.
in
Yeah,
psychology, but not a licensed
but again,
psychologist.
Not a license.
No, he
Right.
is a licensed physician. No, he's a licensed psychologist. He might not be a medical. He might not be a psychiatrist,
Mhm.
but he's probably is a psychologist, and both of them can both people can counsel. The difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist is that one can give medicine and one cannot. So it doesn't make it illegal, but he made millions. Oprah Winfrey made him,
They just capitalize. They know what their audience want, and they just capitalize.
they just capitalize on just like
TikTok. There you
TikTok,
go.
another example.
Mhm.
What's the other show? Married at First Sight.
Yeah.
People are intrigued by love. The Bachelor and the Bachelorette, all of those shows, right? The one show that lasted a very long time.
American Idol.
No, not that. That's not.
That's
No,
entertainment.
that's straight intellect is Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Jeopardy has been on for over 30 years.
So something like that itself, I would
Yeah.
say, like on the father extreme.
Yeah, that's the other extreme of the whole conversation. But it's cool losing these two individuals. The work that Harry Belafonte
Mhm.
did. One, his work
Beyond entertainment.
as a philanthropist,
Mhm.
as a civil rights advocate.
Mhm.
Those things. He was instrumental in the March in Washington
Mhm.
in 1963 with Dr. King. He had 4 children, married 3 times. I did not know that.
Mhm.
He got so Andre. I want to say something, but Dr. Martin's gonna slap me.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not so bad because I would be on Dr. Brandt's side.
No,
So-
he got married in the 70s.
Oh,
Got married 3 times in the 70s. It's always interesting to me when I hear people get married in their 70s.
Why?
I don't know. It's just weird.
Why is it weird?
Like I think like in your 70s you should already be married and having
Life happens.
winding
he
down.
was 70, around in his
He was-
70s.
Yeah, he got married in 2008,
Oh.
so which was 15 years ago. So it's,
And he
actually, it
married
was
for
80,
long,
81.
but he married for a little bit
I think he's
longer.
been married since 2008.
I'm not sure.
His 3rd wife.
My man's
So
still
at 81,
bonded.
he's still doing his
Still
thing, right?
bonded.
And he was married to a young cat.
We're not meant to do this life thing alone. So
Yeah, it's I was talking to somebody, this whole different subject, and I was talking to somebody about
I wanted to see if there was a comment.
what's the topic for today? Oh, we have a few things. Oh, Devon. So we are reminiscing on some of the 2 people we lost. Our guest today will be continuing the conversation on cannabis. A few things that happened in the news that are of major interest to all of us, including my Knicks making it to the next round. Of
All
course,
right.
Dr. Brown is going to say move on.
You see, you're such a hater.
whose person is that?
Right?
I don't know.
Oh, Devon. Didi,
Con-
thank you for tuning in on our YouTube.
The call it our topic.
Congratulations
Right.
to the
The
Knicks.
call it a topic.
Congratulations. You know what? I'm happy for the Knicks because my dad's been rooting for the Knicks since Patrick Ewing was still playing, and it's about time.
Um,
It is really about time.
Yeah.
So kudos to the Knicks.
Congratulations
Moving on
to
to the next round.
okay, I thought you said moving on to the next subject. The Brooklyn Nets are out. They got swept, right? They got swept. Dave, I have a question for you. You can just type it in the chat. I don't know if you're gonna be. I know you're. I think you're at work, right? But what's your opinion on the cannabis conversation? There was a couple of takedowns. Well, actually, you know what? Let me leave that for a little bit. But if you're sticking around for the next, what time? 7:30.
7:30 in 3 minutes.
In a few minutes, you'll be on.
Mhm.
So if you stick around for about 10 minutes, if you stick around, I want to hear what our guests talk about and give us some feedback from your side of dealing with people who are doing illegal activities without in terms of your role as I'm just going to call you a lawyer.
Mhm.
Your role as a lawyer,
Okay.
right? Talk about that conversation in terms of what's happening with cannabis.
Mhm.
A lot of illegal activities are happening. A lot of smoke shops are getting hammered
Okay.
with that because they're selling it in the back room, right? So,
I can't wait for them to shut them down.
yeah, I know you're a hater.
It's all right.
You're a hater. You're like you're square. You need to get a little more circle, right? And let the weed be free. Be free.
Mm.
I know it's not 420, but let us be free. What else has happened? Don Lemon.
Oh.
Don Lemon.
That,
Yeah, you were saying
that he got canceled.
he got
Fired.
canceled. I think honestly, I felt like he was coming.
Mhm.
I-
For a while. New Year's.
He cries too much.
I don't think it's the cry.
But I think this one was the last straw though, because
He can't hear you properly.
I came across a video talking where he was debating what's the Indian American guy name? I think that
Native American.
No, he was Indian.
yeah, it was Indian
not
American.
Native
But he said it in the video. The guy said it in the video.
Okay.
So
I think he was right. I think Don Lemon was right.
when he was responding to the
Yeah,
guy,
because
right?
what the guy was saying was a crack of balloon.
Right. But what happened? I don't know if when you were listening to the video, Don Lemon was just like, I can't keep thoughts when you're talking to my ear, and I was like, oh well, of course they're gonna. I can't maintain a thought if you're talking to my ear, and I was like, well, there you go. That must be it, really, because the superior's in the back was like, oh no, he didn't. Right? So
No. But what the guy? I don't know if you're able to play the clip, but it was a conversation between a Republican and Don Lemon, who's a staunch Democrat. The man actually made, like, I would be upset too. I seriously would. I'm not even born American, right? I'm American by acculturation, right? And by acculturation, assimilation, right? And I'm pissed off about the comment,
Okay.
right? Because how dare you tell me that the civil rights was about African Americans? Where the hell did you get that stupidness from? Like, the Civil War was about, no, the Civil War was about, slavery wasn't even part of the conversation because the South, had they not succeeded or tried to succeed, they were able to keep their slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation did not free a single slave.
Right.
If you're in Maryland, right, Maryland, the people in Maryland, right, were allowed to keep their slaves. And the Emancipation Proclamation freed slaves in southern states, which during 1964 to 1965, the North, the Union, did not have control over. So how I'm going to free a slave in your house? Does that even make sense? Like, I'm gonna come to your house and say, hey, your son, no, let's not even say that. I'm calling on the phone and say that, hey, your son don't need to do dishes in your house. I say so outside here, like they live in my house, right? And and the South offered African Americans freedom if they were to join the war and fight with them.
Of course.
So what exactly did the Emancipation Proclamation do? The slaves in the North were still slaves. The slaves in the South were freed if they chose to remain in the Union. So, you know, to me, it's like we're talking about your boy Don, and I was just saying, John, that I agree with Don Lemon on this. Right. So let's run the video for a little bit. I know our guest is almost on, so let's run the video for a little bit. So this is all credited to CNN.
With the other, especially consider and using the Civil War to talk about Black Americans. That war was not fought for Black people to have guns. That's not.
That war was fought for Black people to have freedoms in this country. Yeah. Actually, that's why the Civil War was fought.
Okay.
And the sad part about it,
fought for Black people to have guns. I think.
Actually, you know, funny fact is, Black people did not get to enjoy the other freedoms until their Second Amendment rights were secured. And I think that that's one of the lessons that we learned.
Aren't allowed to enjoy the freedoms.
I disagree with you on that, Don. I disagree with you. And I think you're doing a disservice to our country by failing to recognize the fact that we have equality before the law.
And you live in this country, then you can disagree with me, but we're not. You mentioned that
I disagree.
3 different shades.
Don, I think we have to be able to talk about these issues in the open, regardless of the color of our skin. Black Americans today, to say that, compare that to 1865 and 1964,
I think for you to compare it to 1865 and 1964 is actually, I think it's insulting to Black people. It's insulting to me as an African American. I don't want to sit here and argue with you because it's infuriating for you to put those things together. It's not right. Your telling of history is wrong. What
part of the history was wrong?
What part of the history was wrong? That the Civil War was fought. You're making people think that the Civil War was fought for Black people, only for Black people to get guns and for Black people to have.
The Civil War was fought for Black people in this country to get freedoms, a noble mission. And I think that even after we succeeded, we had to actually secure those freedoms.
To reduce it in a speech at the NRA to say you're making people think, or you're trying to say that Black people to get guns, that was the reason that you're there at the NRA. That was the reason for the Civil War.
It is a fact.
That's reductive.
It's not reductive.
It's insulting.
And the Second Amendment was part of it.
Hang on, please. I cannot keep a thought if you guys are talking to me in my ear. So hang on one second. So to say that Black people, say what you said again.
Black people secured their freedoms after the Civil War. It is a historical fact, Don. Just study it. Only after their Second Amendment rights were secured.
That's a fact. Secured their freedoms after the Civil War. That is not. You are discounting Reconstruction. You're discounting a whole host of things that happened after the Civil War when it comes to African Americans, including the whole reason that the.
Right. So yeah, that's pretty much part of it. And that's what you're saying. His studio is telling me.
You know what? Don Lemon is, to me, he's sort of like a prima donna. Meaning that, he just thinks, that I honestly, to me, Don thought he was better than everybody else, the way he should be treated,
He did in a way. I would have to.
But however, in that interview, I agree with him what he was telling that individual. He was trying to correlate freedoms. African Americans gained their freedom after they received their right to bear arms. They never wanted African Americans to bear arms because they were scared that we bear arms, we kill them.
Exactly.
So it wasn't about that.
And bearing arms in the Black community, they want Black people to kill each other. That doesn't. It didn't correlate, but I get it. Hey, Carrie, we didn't even get a chance to say hello. Somebody just brought you on air. I didn't even know you were on.
You know what? We want to know your perspective of that interview.
Welcome back.
Yes, welcome back.
Thank you. I thought I was getting to be in.
Are you still on the plane?
No, I'm actually at the Hilton at a cannabis conference. So every time y'all get me, I'm somewhere cool at this point.
Wait. Did you say somewhere cool or did you say somewhere high? We weren't.
Well, yeah.
Whoa.
It's highly cool.
It's highly cool. I got you.
Both.
Listen, I've been actually studying that. In my opinion, I'm with John on that, right? I think that, you know, the way that they kind of roll things in to make things look good. You know, we basically, the Civil War was the freedom between the North and the South, and they kind of used us as the army and the militia. And part of that promise is, yeah, if you help us win this war, we'll free you, and all of those rights that came with it. But the 14th Amendment, that basically the 13th Amendment that messed us up, the 14th Amendment that try to help us seem like we had freedoms. Yeah, the Second Amendment was just thrown in there to kind of protect our farms after they started doing that stuff to us. The reality of it is, you know, I prayed on this the other day, and I spoke to somebody like, where are we as Black people that every time we tried to take a step forward, you know, society's really been built to knock us down. And that's everything from our voting rights to even the world I'm in, cannabis, right? The reality of it is that we fought for this country, continually served this country, never asked to come to this country, and yet we don't get any of the real rights that they promised us. And so I'm with John on that, right? The Second Amendment was just thrown in to be like, okay, we'll give y'all a few guns, but y'all aren't really free, but we have to give y'all all the other amendments that are locked in. So kudos to Don Lemon on that one, because
they didn't want us to have no guns.
Yeah.
They didn't want us to bear no arms, because we would use those arms against them.
Yep. You know,
but that's why the 13th Amendment jumped in too, right? Because that us having guns made us criminals, and then all of a sudden they put us in jail.
Exactly.
And by putting us in jail, they got a whole new slavery going on. So yeah, so it's all the same nonsense that continues.
From 1865, right, to 1872, those 7 years in American history was where you had, it's kind of like far left, right? And all of a sudden, little by little, you had the first U.S. senator that was elected in, I think, 1868, I believe, or 1870, not sure the year back then. And then after 1872, you had the Jim Crow laws, right? That just started taking into effect, North and South, right? People think that North was easier than South. The only difference between the North and the South was more overt.
Yeah.
In the North, they were more subtle, but the racism was, even today, racism is still entrenched. So I think we're all unanimously saying that this guy that he was talking to, Vivek, really is brainwashed, right, to believe that African Americans truly, we as Black people in America, and I don't like the word African American, I hate that word, because I feel like when you put that, we as American, all Americans don't have the same rights.
Brother, I'm an African American. I don't know what you're talking about,
no,
brother.
I'm saying I'm not knocking you for using it. I'm saying me
all right.
personally.
Thank you.
Right, me personally, I don't like that expression, because I think that kind of separates, and I think that we need to focus on what's going on in America in certain communities versus other communities, and also you talk about class as well. But anyway, let's get back to you. You're enjoying the cannabis life, the high and the cool air up there.
The high heights. The high heights.
I thought I was coming in studio because I had product for y'all, and then I told it was virtual, so sorry.
It's John's fault. It's John's fault. All right. Yeah.
Who said it's virtual? I thought you were coming in the studio, man. What are you trying to?
You
at the Hilton, brother.
You're chickened out.
No, that's what I asked Andre. I was coming back. He's like, it's virtual, so I was like, let me stay in the Hilton a little longer.
You're in the city.
Yeah, I'm in New York though.
You could just drop it off.
No problem.
Just drop it off. I don't know. Just the cannabis, the oil I'm talking about, by the way, the pain.
Yeah, the rub, the pain rub.
The pain rub.
You can't ingest that one. You could only rub it at exterior.
I think there's one that they could put under your tongue or something like that.
Yeah, I have that one. So listen, kudos to Black people in this business, right? So this stuff that I'm holding is It's from a black woman who her company's called Butter Cake, right? So it's upside down. Butter Cake. They're basically like the Listerine strips. It's more of a medical thing to help cancer patients get their appetite back and also reduce pain. But this sister's been doing her work for a minute in what they call the legacy market, because no one gave her a chance, and now she's actually at a point where she can get a chance to do this stuff.
You know, we had I don't remember the name of the guest. Oh man, it slipped me right now. Who the book?
I remember.
And they had the series of writers, like, so it's a compilation of authors who I actually read the book, and I remember all the stories, but I can't remember the name of the book. Where they were talking about all of these different people getting together to talk about the strong effect of cannabis. Like, one was a medical doctor who kind of gave up, she multitasked between her practice. One person sold all of her items to start a business and there's a school in Ohio, in Cleveland, Ohio, that addresses the industries of cannabis, right? So when you talk about the strips right there, that's just another industry that people can look at cannabis, and not just, because I think a lot of times when people think about cannabis, they think about, yo, I'm sitting in the corner bunning some weed with my boys, right? And not understand. So tell us, you're supposed to be close to an expert now. Tell us some other things besides just bunning the spliff that where and by the way, what's the difference between cannabis and marijuana?
Well, so there's no difference, right? Marijuana, cannabis is the medical name for the cannabinoid plant that, we all have an endocannabinoid system. Marijuana, weed, all of that was created to create a negative connotation behind this plant. Because again, let's get back to the War of 1865, when things are like of God, right? Medicinal plant stuff, but yet there's not a way to kind of like create an economic engine of it, then communities outside of our communities create these negatives, right? So cannabis, marijuana is still looked at as a Schedule A drug, much like narcotics, cocaine, and those things. However, like I said in the last show, we have an endocannabinoid system. When we're born, we have a DNA and an endocannabinoid system. So that automatically shows that cannabis is a healing part of our genetics, right? And, from Caribbean days, before it was villainized, families used to make tea with it. It is a natural anti-inflammatory drug that is, if it's rubbed topically, it reduces swelling, it increases healing. If it's taken internally, it does that internally. So what the world is starting to realize is that this plant has never been the bad drug that they've created it to be, but more so now because other communities can make money on it. And so we have to now undo 50, 60, 70 years of being told marijuana is the bad thing, weed is bad, weed is a gateway drug. When in actuality, if you look at giving someone cannabis versus giving them ibuprofen, it does the same thing, right? It reduces headaches, but it doesn't destroy your liver. And so when we talk to seniors, especially, and the first thing they produce when you have pain, take this ibuprofen. Those ibuprofens, literally after you pass the age of 55, start to reduce your lifespan by 3 to 4 years every time you take it. Because what it does, it destroys your liver. It creates a bad situation for your circulation system. And so, but obviously, hospitals are business. I worked in a hospital. What do? You prescribe drugs. You prescribe more drugs. And by you doing that, you create basically an economic engine. I call it more about that. That's the way that we survive. One of my college professors talked about it being the functionalist system, right? Are we ever truly going to solve crime? Because if we do solve crime, there are no judges, no lawyers, no police officers, right? So when we look at economics in a grander scheme, something like cannabis came into play. The only reason now it's working is big deal because it's $1 billion industry. So there are other ways from doing it other than burning it, right? You can put it in a tea. You could put it in a gummy. You could put it in something like a Listerine strip. You can also, my company makes seltzers. You can drink it that way. And the biggest thing for us, especially around the seniors, is the rubs, the solves, the bombs. And so, Roxanne Prasad, I give her a lot of credit. She was totally anti-cannabis. Senator Prasad totally didn't want any parts of it. So I called her up one day and I was like, hey, can I come to your next senior event? Now, Roxanne has.
No. I'm just saying. Wait. What I'm saying, Kyrie, is we have a Senator Prasad in the studio right now. Anything you say about
a Senator Prasad like.
Right there. Soon we're gonna hear those she opened her own business, though. We're gonna hear that soon, right, John?
Oh yeah, and hopefully she'll buy products from us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we went to the senator's event in September. She had 108 seniors, and we set up a table, and we had the seniors come to our table, and we rubbed them down. Where's your aches and pains? Where's your arthritis? And literally in less than 10 minutes, it works. And so we had seniors dancing, doing all the great stuff. And the senator came to me and she's like, you know what? I take that back. I said, because we're caught up in the mystique of kids smoking it on the corner, kids getting high, kids can't do these things. But it really is a healing drug. And what we also realized too is that a lot of our kids, I mean, you're an educator, Rudy, right? That a lot of our kids have real post-traumatic stress and real trauma. And what cannabis does, it lowers the level of anxiety. It lowers the level of depression. No one's ever gotten in a fight in a club over cannabis. Hennessy is something different, and yet we promote Hennessy. And so these are the things that we have to re-educate our community on. So I appreciate coming on twice, and I'll come on more to start talking about the real
Hold on 1 second.
Uh-huh.
All right, I just want to let you, as you brought up the adult youth and the seniors, I just want to make sure to bring you that one of our sponsors actually for the show is the Grace Family Adult Social Daycare, right? So we ensure a happy and healthy life for elders. So I'm just putting it out there as well that maybe one of those, you could probably set up a table for them as well. If you have a question, you have a senior who wants to come out, participate and not staying at home, maybe get some of that rubbing oil and bring it in. We can help them provide that. We give free breakfast, free lunch, free beverages for you to come out, enjoy special events. You could call 646-504-5778, gracefamilyadult@gmail.com for more information. There's an open house coming up within the next 2 weeks at 1330 Utica Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11203. Medicaid is accepted. Call for an appointment. We'll definitely meet with you, 347-770-8446 or 347-770-8447, 646-504-5778. The Grace Family Adult Social Daycare. So we're saying that the seniors, they're good for that, right? They're good for that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've had seniors who've had arthritis in their spine. And again, the way cannabis works in your body, it connects to your endocannabinoid system and it reduces inflammation, it reduces pain, and these are the things that, again, you going through.
Man, where's my supply, man? Where is my supply?
Right, I got it with me, brother. I thought I was coming through.
Yo, dude, by the way, we're in the studio until about 9:15. So take a jet. All right. Just take a jet and come down. You know what I'm excited about, Kyrie, is that you are going beyond the explanation because, again, for a lot of people, Dr. Brian, it's only the smell that comes up to her window, right, from downstairs that she understands. But I think I also, as a Jamaican-born person, didn't even get that. All these medicinal things. My wife has a bottle at home, like you're saying with the tea, right? Put a little white rum in it with the leaves in it that somebody gave to her that I finished, right? right? Because when treatment, you're laughing. I'm dead serious. When the treatment came, like a couple 3.5 years ago, when the pain, fentanyl wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
Fentanyl wasn't doing it. The
opioids,
they weren't doing it. So I just took a shot here, a shot there. The only thing that didn't do well for me because it left the aftertaste was the edible. So I didn't like. But and again, I'm glad you're saying it because I have never in my life smoked marijuana. Never. Right. But after those pain hit, they're like, "Yo, Roderick, try this, try that." And you started seeing a little bit different, putting on my tongue, those kind of things to spray.
Please, Mr. Edwards, please explain. Some of our listeners are concerned, Hazra, about they don't want to see this as being a magic bullet or something like that. No, I don't think it is. I think this is a form of holistic healing. So, Hazra, we got to be open to things.
Well, I'll say this. I had a massage done by CBD or whatever, and I broke out in hives completely.
Yeah, she breaks up in hives, but if you smile too hard at her, Carrie, she can break out in hives.
He's such a hater.
Yes, I am a hater.
But yeah, I broke out in hives.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it could have been mixed with something, right? But I will say this, right? John is on point, holistic, right? And again, what Hazra is going through is what everybody who's dealt with this is going through. No one believes that you have to undo generational understanding and education, right? Drugs are bad. This is your brain on drugs. And don't get me wrong, there are people that abuse it. And like I said in your last show, if you have a predisposed mental condition, schizophrenia, bipolar, right? That cannabis can create a bad place for you, right? But there are wonders that cannabis does, and we have to continually beat the drum, right? There are groups that Black Doctors for Cannabis, right? There are medical groups for cannabis because it is part of your genetic makeup. And so what I think that we have to do is, again, you have to do more of these shows, Rudy. You have to create more of these places. Doctor, we got to bring you this rub and have it rubbed on your knee. And then you come back and be like, you know what? I don't have that pain. But when you get folks past the stigma of it, it changes. Like one of my little anecdote stories, right? When I was dating my wife, my wife grew up in a Rastafarian tradition. And when I was dating her, like, she smoked. And she's not ashamed to tell anybody. And now, I'm trying to get some. I'm trying to be down. So I'm like, I'm gonna take a puff here and there. But I knew this thing could have been good. And being a diabetic, I've been a diabetic since I was 4 years old. And I had bad diabetic retinopathy in the back of my eye. And I would go to the doctors and the doctors would be like, look, you got to get your sugars under control or else you're going to go blind. So I'm dating my wife. I'm smoking once a week, just trying to make sure I stay in good times with her. And I go back to the ophthalmologist and he's like, hey, the spots are gone. What are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. He's like, your sugars are still out of control. And John, actually, I think that was right before I worked for you. I was working for the governor at the time. And he was like, your sugars are still out of control, but the spots are gone. He's like, what are you doing? And I was embarrassed. I said, look, smoke a little weed. I'm dating this girl. I'm smoking a little weed here and there, nothing crazy. He leaned over and he's like, keep doing it. And I'm like, what do you mean? He was just like, he's like,
I just want to let you know, I didn't know he was smoking a little weed. I didn't know that.
This before I started working with you, but he basically was like, folks don't realize that I don't care, brother. I know you ain't care, but he's like, folks are really not understanding the healing side of this stuff. And literally, like my eyesight, I don't dabble as much as I used to because it knocks me out, makes me sleepy. But this is what goes on, and you'll be amazed to see that there are legislators, there are pastors, there are teachers, there are nurses that understand that this thing helps them sleep. This thing helps them, their body recover. And the funniest thing, when I first started this job, my dad is 88 years old. And he's like, so what are you doing now? You're not in politics. What are you doing now? And it was the hardest thing for me to tell my dad, look, I'm in cannabis, right? I'm in marijuana. And you know, when I told him, the first thing he said to me, he was like, listen, I've been having trouble sleeping. Can you get me some gummies? I was like, okay.
Oh, Lord.
Come by.
I was like, okay.
All right, Dad, let's see what we can do. You know, I'm glad. Hey, Pam, how you doing? You know, Pamela's my former student over there at Prospect as well. So, you know, saying hi. Thank you for joining us. You know, let's talk about the negative side. Let's get to that negative side a little bit. The overuse, the access for young people.
Illegal, the mixing, people creating their own
all right. We don't need for you to go through all of your negative reasons. Yo, she has a list like this long, so we don't want to get her started. But,
I'm here to address it all though, because I got a list that long too. I do. I got it.
But one of the major concerns when I was the assistant principal, and I walked into a school, it was a great disservice in our school building to see these young people just using it like it was water. And the second part of that is affordability, right? A young person, 16, 15, 14, 13, that age group, they can't afford it. They can't afford the marijuana. Are there things that your company is doing or are doing, is there things that your company is doing to put legislation in place to offset young people from using it, maybe strengthen the laws around the distribution around schools or the usage in school, right? Or things like that, and also educate, right? Educate people about the beyond usage, the beyond the conversation that we are talking about now, the beyond,
right,
like for my cancer, for my pain, for, you know, even for leisure. It's okay for leisure sometimes too, right? But the excessive usage can cause, like you just mentioned, schizophrenia. What kind of education is happening from your company?
So one of the beautiful things about just being a community person, right? My company is not yet in New York. We are applying in New York, and we're applying as, like I said, a medical registered operator, right? So we are allowed to grow in the medical, distribute, have our own dispensaries, medical. That's the basis of the way the legislation was written for the New York State, right? The MRTA was really built to look at adult use, because there is going to be casual use, but then also make sure that there is a medical side where we're not going back to the days of how we are just in a normal medicine, right? Ignoring the needs of Black and brown people. So we partnered with a group, a great young set of young ladies, Cultivated Community Foundation. And they, like I told you before, they're DOE registered to go into the schools and talk about prevention. Because the reality of what kids don't realize is that if you are an avid smoker below the age of 16, right, then your body then gets accustomed to that level of, I want to say, just relaxation, but that now affects your brain function, right? It affects your normal growth. And so what we have been trying to do, and what the city of New York has been trying to do, is get to the kids before 17, to let them know if you're smoking at 13, 14, 15, that could become a problem. Now, if it's under the supervision of a doctor, that's something different, right? Because you're talking about things from sickle cell, you're talking about with some of the other issues like lupus. There are health issues that you can prescribe to young people below the age of 17. But if you're abusing that thing, it does inhibit your developmental side. So like I said, we partner with these young ladies to go into the schools through their DOE contracts, sponsor their travel, sponsor lunches, sponsor lunch and learns for teachers and otherwise, to kind of explain to the community about these issues when you're young. Now, I'll be very honest with you, right? These are kids. We were all kids. You know, sex education is no longer in high schools, is no longer in middle schools, right? What do kids do our age when they realize that, you know, they didn't want their parents to know anything? They went and had sex in their you know, friend's house, right? There are students now who are taking suppositories and using that to get drunk. And so the reality of cannabis does not take away the fact that young people are going to do things without permission, and that the best we could do as parents, as communities, is continue to inform them, to give them a chance to succeed. But what you're seeing now with these illegal shops, it's a problem, because literally they're opening up across schools, they're by churches, they're putting them in packaging. Like New York State's doing a lot to say when this legal market comes that they can't have packaging that will attract kids, right? But yet, whether it's K2 and all these other things, they're doing those things. And so this is really an issue for the state and city of New York that is out of my scope. You know, like I said, we're not even in the process of giving products out, but the state of New York has a huge issue. And I know they don't want to criminalize folks because they just decriminalized, you know, marijuana use. But the reality of it is if they don't find a way to truly stop, and it's not our community, right? Our community, again, are consumers. We're not the owners. We're not the ones. There are other communities doing that. And so that becomes an issue.
Are our own community putting it out there. I said some of the illegals that they're creating the drink, the marijuana drink or whatever, it's the bodegas. They're creating it and putting it at the bodegas, creating all these gummies or whatever for the kids to pick up. So it's more about money, and it's not about the safety and well-being of the young folks. And that's a problem. I understand you said it's not our community. It is our community when it's being easy access for a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old to have access to that. So I don't blame anyone but the ones who are selling it.
See, where Dr. Bryant and I sometimes have disagreements, right? This is one of them, right? It was there before, right? That's my problem, that it was there before. So I want to know now. Wait, hold on. Now that we're moving towards making cannabis more accessible legally, more accessible, and that's the other part of the conversation, right? Accessible legally. We have to do more, because before it was illegal. You couldn't stop it. Now you have some level of curbing what the message, or not curbing, that's the wrong word, carving the message that's going out, like you said, around the schools, in schools, young people. But I think, though, we shouldn't be looking at 17-year-olds, but we're supposed to get to the middle school and the elementary schools as well, to ensure that people are understanding the negative and the positive effect. I think Stargirl comment, what was Stargirl's comment? Just pull back up Stargirl's comment.
And to go back,
the problem, that's the problem. Young people are not using it for medicinal purposes, and the abuse is messing them up. I don't know if I'm going to go as far as saying messing them up, but the poor usage is affecting them. So I think it's this combination.
Here's the thing. Like you said, some things are laced with other things. So it's about greed. When you start putting other things with the marijuana and you're selling it, there was the amount of smoke shops that have popped up everywhere is because, hey, you know what? Now it's legal. Let's sell it. So next week across the street, there's a pop store.
By the way, Gary, Empress loves you, by the way. She and I was talking off here. She's like, hey, you know, so we were talking. Yeah, but the flip side of, I think what you're doing, Kyrie, is very important because you're educated, right? You're educated about both sides, right? And that's what you're doing. You're having these workshops. You're talking about the medicinal purpose, and you're also talking about the illegal usage. But that's important too. You know, tell us a little bit about your company.
Say that last piece. You broke up a little.
Tell us a little bit about your company.
So Air Wellness was started in 2017. We first we acquired a cannabis business in Nevada. And we've now are in 8 states. We're applying, like I said, in New York and Texas to get to our 10th state. So we're, so basically, but my role, which I found.
A Republican state, Texas? And wait.
Say again?
You're applying in the Republican state for licensure, but the Democratic state is causing you problems. I don't understand that. I figured the liberal state would be more on your side than the red state, but that's just me. I'm just thinking. Yeah.
But it's interesting too. So Ayr is spelled AYR. It's a public traded company. So if anybody's trying to get into some cannabis stock, I would suggest you buy some now. It's really low and it's going to go up.
Well? Is that a symbol? AYR?
Say you're coming a little thing. Say it again.
Is that the symbol as well? AYR. What's the symbol for it on the? Is it changed? Is it traded on the Nasdaq or the?
Yeah, on the Nasdaq. You can't get it on Robinhood. You get it on Nasdaq.
All right. So what's the symbol? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. But like I said, my role is really interesting because, like I said, I was brought in.
Wait, hold on, because we're trying to look it up as well. What's the symbol on Nasdaq? Do you know what it is?
Yeah, it's AYR Wellness. That's the symbol. AYR Wellness on.
Andre's looking up right now, so I might be buying some of this. You assume?
Are we on the market?
Yeah, it says it's on the market. Go ahead. So you were saying about AYR. Go ahead. I think there's a delay between what we're saying to you in the studio and what you're hearing.
Yeah, y'all gotta get me in the studio.
Yeah, because there's a delay. Because I see you looking as we're speaking because we're waiting, and then you're waiting as well. So there's a delay. You were telling us about AYR. What states are you in?
You're coming in a little pixelated on mine. I don't know if it's where I'm at.
John, can you hear us?
John, could you interpret for me?
I think
John is frozen.
Yeah.
It sounds pixelated on mine. I don't know if I sound like that to you guys.
So can you read it? John, can you hear us loud and clear, John? You're muted, John.
I can hear you faintly.
Okay, I wonder if it's us.
You got to speak up.
Okay, so that's the question on the screen.
Oh, you can. Oh, okay. Can you guys hear me now?
I hear you.
Okay, cool. Sorry. Yeah.
I need some of that blood so I can hear it. Hear better.
So Rudy, I can only hear you pixelated. I hear John. John, you got to interpret for me.
John, ask him read this question on the screen, John.
What's the question?
Which 8 states?
Which what?
8 states. What is it?
Could be.
I think maybe. What are the 8 states that you're in?
Oh, what are the 8 states you're in?
Okay, I got it. So we're in Nevada, Ohio, Illinois, Florida, Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. We were in Arizona, but we just gave up Arizona, so technically 8. But yeah, those are the states that we're in, and New York and Texas we're applying.
How large? Okay, so let's go back.
I've heard how much.
No, go back. You saw the medicinal effect. You're coming out of being diabetic, being told to, you try this. You're coming out of the medical field, and your mama, God rest her soul, would be like, this is what you're doing? What made you make that decision to say, hey, this is something I think I should be doing?
So it's interesting because, like I said, after the loss of the election, I still wanted to serve, right? I still wanted to do stuff for, especially my Brooklyn folks, but I wanted to just do something. And it was actually my wife's best friend who asked me if I'd be interested in cannabis. And I was like, nah, that's not my thing. They were like, look, they're looking to create pathways for people of color who've been affected by the war on drugs, at least take a call. And so the CEO of Air Wellness called me, a guy named John Sandelman, and he was just like, look, I'm trying to create something I call a force for good. So I'm like, what does that mean? And he was just like, that's the question I'm asking. What does that mean to be a force for good in cannabis? And so I sat there and we had a long conversation, and it turned out to just be something that was interesting. He said, I get to go into communities that look like ours, who are so much worse off than us, because people don't really understand how much of a blessing it is to be in New York, to have the legislators, the people of color that are in control. Whereas when you go to states like Florida, obviously, or Nevada, you don't have those rights for Black and brown people. And so what I'm able to do with cannabis money is go into communities and heal them. Some of the pillars we do is my social justice work, right? We go into communities for folks who've been locked up for a little spliff of weed and are doing 8 years. And I'm able to go into those communities and run expungement events and help people get back in public housing, help them get their health care. Things that we do Seeds to Success, where I'm able to go into communities of people who are interested in cannabis or people who are not interested in cannabis, and influence their thought process by giving them an opportunity to go to college through us, to do certifications through us, and start to heal communities. We do a lot of great housing work in Massachusetts, food insecurity work in Pennsylvania. And then when you start to look at it, there are folks. So what he told me was he followed me when I ran for borough president, and he said, the things that you wanted to do, the programs you were talking about, I want you to do that on a national stage. And that's why I love this work. Like, I'm literally on planes every week, but when you go into a community and see that you're able to give somebody a second chance, one of the most moving things I did was last winter during Christmas time. I went to North Carolina to a family. The husband is doing 8 years in prison for less than an ounce of weed. And he left 6 kids and his wife and his mother-in-law. They had no Christmas tree, Rudy. They had no gifts under the tree. And part of our give back was we were able to go down there and buy them a tree, buy them gifts, give her $1,000 to get her through a hard time. And that was through a partnership with this group called Freedom Grow. And Freedom Grow is kind of a make-a-wish for prisoners in jail for nonviolent crimes, because no one should be locked up for less than a dime bag of weed. And this is the things that are going in all over the country that are not ours. And we push the president through advocacy, and the president started to forgive crimes of those who are sitting in jail, nonviolent crimes for cannabis. And so these are the things that I get to do all across the country. And it's even been more of a pleasure coming back to New York. And, even though New York has automatically expunged cannabis crimes, there's secondary crimes. There's breaking and entering, right? There's grand larceny, things that people still can't get a life for. And, one gentleman, through your old company, John Exodus, told me, he's like, Mister, you took off paper handcuffs from me. You gave me a chance to now be able to be a man to my family, because the cannabis conviction was gone, but that breaking and entering that he had over 30 years ago, it was still on his docket, and we got that removed. And so these are the things that I enjoy about this world. Like, I'm not in the consumer side of it, but by giving folks a chance, and that 1865 conversation that you guys brought up was so important to me, because sharecropping, right? Treating Black folks as slaves because they are now the people who are doing the work. We get to undo that. We get to give them another chance. And sorry to be long about it, but it's really something that I emotionally am excited about, because when you walk into Massachusetts and somebody who doesn't know you says, I remember you showing up and speaking at an event and you gave me a chance, it changes your life.
It's unnecessary thing that people talk about. We have it's long questions from, he's on the other side of the law, right? So
and then I'll be following up with a question.
he's not as bad as Dr.
No,
Brian.
I have a question for him as well.
I'm gonna make her believe it though. I'm gonna make her believe. I'm gonna bring it, and she's gonna believe.
Yeah, I'll wait to see that crap. I want to see that, right, Dr. Brown? You want to see that too, right? Look at her face. Oh my God, yo, Carrie, if you were in this studio to see her face right now, she's just like chopping you up, like.
No. Before you answer,
let me just hold on. Let me read the question first. Oh, you want to read it? You want to read it?
No.
All right, so I'll read it. So the abuse is in any form is still abuse, right? And again, this is coming from somebody who's on the other side of the law, right? So so what's the right age? What's abuse? Smoking 10 times a day or 3 times a day? If they rub it in, is it acceptable now, like seniors? So he's looking at it, and I think Stargirl is on the same vein as well, same wavelength, right? So what do you consider abuse when you talk about the positive sides?
And picture, please. I want both pictures. It's tied to this. So when they are selling this in a bodega store, right? And young folks are buying this at 10, 11 years old. Would you consider this abuse?
So if those are homemade, then they're safer than buying them in the store, right? I think.
But those are in the store for purchasing.
Oh, you bought? Okay.
Hold on. What is that?
So the thing about cannabis, that's when you're growing it, right? It's if you're not a botanist, growing cannabis is a very delicate process, right? And so sometimes when you grow them, there's sugar, there's mold, there's aluminum, there's all of these different things that are not tested, and you shouldn't. It's not going to kill you. Let me be clear. It's not going to kill you. But these aren't things that you generally want to ingest into your body. And so the reason why,
should you have that available for an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old to purchase at your local bodega store where they're picking up the heroes, and here, a cute little drink that they're going inside of the classroom with to say, hey,
wait. I got to be on Carrie's side here on this one, right? And it goes back to what I was saying before.
Abuse. Right? I'm talking about abuse.
No. I am agreeing with you. You're looking at a way now that we have to say, how do we regulate, right? Because prior to these levels of regulations, right, anybody could have done anything, right? You not to mention, people killing each other, people hurting each other. Now there's a way to say, hey, let's legalize and regulate what we're doing, right? So to avoid some of the bodegas were selling these things. How many times, Carrie, we walked into your neighborhood where you saw a store that had nothing on the shelves, but what was happening in the back, right? Now you can put something on the shelves and something on the shelves legally and not in the back. So I'm hearing, in a way, like, how do we address these things, right? So I think more regulations in terms of what happened.
And to tie it back with the abuse question, what would you consider abuse?
Yeah, some of it came in broken up, but if I heard some of it correct, right? I think that it's a tough place for me to be in, right? Because I think that the reality of it is that anything that's regulated and legal is always better. And what's going on here is that, like I said, this proliferation of these stores, everybody's trying to make $1. And the worst thing I feel is that we're going to kill each other over $1. And that's what's happening with these illegal stores. So a friend of mine who's in the illegal market, he's in the legal market in California, but he's in the illegal market in New York. And this is what he told me. He said, while the New York State is taking their time to do it right, which they are, California, right, which is the best place to get your weed unless it's Afghanistan, they're growing stuff, and their unregulated, untested stuff. That's what they're shipping over here. They're shipping that from here, Oklahoma, Portland. And so what we're getting is cheap weed, but it's unregulated, untested weed. And like I said, for the most part, it won't kill you. But if you get a bad batch and your body does not take to it, it can create worse problems. And when you mentioned fentanyl earlier as well, you know, there are folks that are lacing stuff, right? So we're not even worried about K2 as much as now we're worrying about fentanyl going into everything, whether it's your cocaine, whether it's your narcotics, whether it's your opioids. And that's what's killing folks. And so just to be safe, like we have to tell our kids, we have to tell folks, and I don't have a problem scaring people. You get a bad batch, that could be it for you, you know? And they're good kids who were predisposed to bipolarism and schizophrenia, and they smoked a bad batch, and now they're in mental hospitals, right? And so sometimes we have to really talk to folks in a scary way. You know, there's an Anthony Anderson commercial about type 2 diabetes, and he talks about, oh, you can end up in a wheelchair, you can end worse off in death. And he's like, is it too rough? Good. And I think that's how we really have to approach it, that, but we make it sexy too, right? And that's the other thing I think, that everything from alcohol to cars to rap music, we make it sexy. And then we expect, like you said earlier, Rudy, our kids to have enough money to buy the legal stuff. And they want to be down. So they're going to go get a vape pen at the illegal store for $5, right? When it should be $25 to $30. And they're going to do that. And the only thing I could say is, look, the next guest you have on your show should be Dashida Dawson, or have one of the sheriffs on to talk about how they're doing that. I wish from my capacity and that I could do more. But the thing I could do is just to get to those kids and those folks through, like I said, cultivated foundation, and have them speak to folks, because it can get bad. So far, like, thank God that weed has not really killed anybody, that fentanyl is killing folks, but so far it's not hurt anybody or killed anyone, but we can't wait for that. And so that's the thing that, you know, your show, talking to folks, even though we joke a little bit about convincing the doctor and Ezra to, you know, take a puff here and there is not going to hurt them. But the reality of it is that we need to keep beating the drum, because it can hurt somebody if it's done wrong.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? And also, if they also try to do, you know, the other side of that, I've seen a lot of people getting hurt, you know, on the other side, not just the user, but the seller, right? So now focusing on creating, let's talk about that as well. Creating businesses for yourself, right? What does that look like? I mean, New York is looking at when is it going to become okay to get your license? Do you have any idea when those registrations are going to come out?
I didn't hear the last part.
Legislation in terms of business. I know that when I spoke to Tremaine Wright early last year, she's a commissioner for cannabis here in New York City, and I know that at my local community board, we have to start looking at addressing cannabis license, right? Although we don't know when that's going to be. Do you have any idea when it's going to be okay to start having the cannabis license here in New York City, New York State?
Yeah, I mean, look, that one, I'm still trying to fight for one myself, but I think, you know, you guys got connections to Tremaine. Tremaine is an amazing chairperson of OCM, which is the Office of Cannabis Management. You know, Chris Alexander, you know, with y'all celebrity, y'all could get all these folks on. So I've just appreciated that I'm the first one to get on. But I think that it would be great to start to build those conversations, because the one thing about the Caribbean community is that we have trauma in this over this, right? It's not something that we grew up thinking is a good thing. So to go make money in it now, it's a difficult place. I wanted to do something with Weatica and Sesame Flyers and have talk to the Caribbean community about getting into this business. But the bigger side of it too, it's like, look, it's money, right? The reason I gave your listeners the Air Wellness sign is because, you know, we were at $20 last year, right? We're down to 54 cents, right? It's going to go back up. And if you get in it on the bottom floor and invest in this, right?
75 cents. That's 75 cents. It went up 7 cents today. That's 75 cents right now.
Say one time.
It went up 11% today.
Well, I can't really hear, but if you say, yeah, so it was at $20, but the industry drop is at 54 cents, right? Take your Susu money and take $1,000 and put that in. Because when that thing go back up to $20, you're rich, right? You triple your Susu. So what I'm trying to get the Black community to understand and your listeners is that let's invest. Let's invest in this industry, because what my boss told me, and he's a white billionaire, that cannabis can give you a 30% return on your investment versus investing in real estate. So, but again, we're left outside of this money. We're left outside of this knowledge unless we get inside of it. But yeah, we're not going to smoke it. We don't want to be bothered with it. It's the devil's, what is it? The devil's brew. But the reality of it is the same thing I told folks when it came down to that vaccine. If white folks are showing up and lining up around the corner and we sitting there still talking about they putting poison in our body, there's something to be said when white folks are doing it and we not. And that's something that we got to look at. And I'm in that. I'm in the industry. $800 million my company made last year. I ain't never seen or heard of money like that. But we're left out. We're not part of management. We're not part of the conversations. And I give New York State so much credit for giving us a chance to get into this, holding up all the big businesses like mine until Black and brown people get a chance to live in this industry. But again, we have too many people who are used to it being a bad thing, and all these other stores don't belong to us. These smoke shops are not our shops. We don't owe them. We don't have, but we're going in there and buying just like we do Gucci and Adidas and everything else and making other people rich. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that even though Kyrie's talking about the company, I'm actually looking at it right now, and I'm sending out the message to tell people to invest in it, to look at it, to let you know that you need to speak to your financial advisor before you make financial decisions about what it is that you want to purchase. So I don't want people to think that we're telling them, hey, go empty out your TBA, you go empty out your 401k and buy AYR. Because when you do stocks, housing gives you the most money, but it takes a longer time. Stocks is second, but both of them are very volatile. So just make sure that people understand that as well. Make sure to put that disclosure out there. This is very, very exciting. That news on both fronts, right? How to make money, how to use the product in a safe way, right? So that people don't get caught up and say, hey, there's, because, sometimes when you really just want to see the bad side, or really when you just want to see the good side, that's all you're seeing. Until something has happened that has transformed your level of expectation, right? That it's on both sides, right? Because it can flip both ways, right? Because you could say, hey, he told me all these positive things and I went and tried and it's negative, or hey, I always thought these negative things and hey, I seen the difference, like Senator Prasad and Rudy Daley a little bit, right? So Rudy Daley has seen some of the positives of it, but he also sees some of the negatives because he grew up in Canarsie, in Brownsville, in East Flatbush, and seen a lot of the negative, a lot of the deaths, a lot of the hurt, a lot of the this, a lot of the that. But you know what? He's also seen a little, all right, that feels better. That feels better, seeing that too.
The parents help with making sure that they're right. Parent commercials. That's what I'm trying to point.
Right. So you get lucky for 2 commercials today, Kyrie. So the Parent Health Workshop, right, is coming up next weekend, May 6th, to get some Parent Guardian Forum on Eventbrite registration to talk about a lot of these things, right? How to control some of the conversations around what your child is learning and how they have access to learning information. This is one of those primary things to talk about the use of cannabis, how for some of these children it can be very helpful, but also for some of these children, how it can be very harmful and when it's access. So they have the free giveaway. You can register on Eventbrite. On Eventbrite. Yeah, you want to read a commercial? Because I'm like, you're on a roll. I can't read, I didn't buy my PhD like you did, right? I just bought my master's.
$170,000.
No, nobody asked me.
Oh, okay.
Right, so it takes a village to help our young people to learn. Parents, you don't be afraid to ask questions like these around special help with mathematics, early childhood literacy, special education, speech pathologists will be there, school administrators, guidance counselors, and authors help you with things with help with different things that are happening. So register on Eventbrite, just type in Stillwater, and you get it. Click on the QR code that's right here on the screen and get some answer. I think we lost Kyrie. I think he's going in and out. Hopefully we'll get him back soon. If not, it was indeed like a pleasure to have a conversation. And I just did numbers real fast, right? If we had bought 1,000 shares today, if you had bought 1,000 shares today off the stock, for you would have made
Oh, he's back.
yeah, you would have made what, $7.50? Did I do that right? 1,000. You'd have made $7.50 today on the stock alone if you bought 1,000 shares, which is more than any bank would have. And that 1,000 shares, by the way, would have cost you what's that? Let me do my numbers right so I don't tell people faulty information. Right? If you had bought 1,000 shares today, it would have cost you times 1,000. It would have cost you $675, and you made $7.50 on the day alone. So something to monitor what it is. The company's not going to go anywhere but up, right? AYR Wellness, Ear Wellness. It's not going to go anywhere but up, and that much I'm pretty certain of. And so take an opportunity to take a look at it, study it, guide it, don't wait too long. What is done? Jamaica is the only place to get the best and safe. I don't know about that, Star Girl. I don't know about that. When I was in Amsterdam a few years back, they had a collection, right? California weed is not bad. Colorado weed ain't too shabby either.
California is the best weed in the world in Humboldt County. Better than Jamaica, and the second best is Afghanistan.
I think it's just bias, Star Girl. I think it's just bias because it's but like I said, just do your research, ask questions, listen to shows like this, meet the people who are asking those questions that are out there. So what's the next step for you with Ear Wellness?
Like I said, my biggest goal is to get hometown. I'm really believing that. I really want to get New York. I think that we're the right fit for New York. I get to stay closer to home, and then I'm still thinking I got some political aspirations. I might take that pay cut to come back into the streets. So I'm not 100% sure, but I want to finish my breakfast and make sure I get New York for this company. And my boss said he knew when he hired me that I may want to go back into public service, but he wants me to do right. And I felt that we've built a real mechanism. And just on the point that you made, tell your listeners that, if I get New York, that stock going through the roof and everybody going to be rich. But the reality of it is that New York is something that's really important to me and able to do the work and do it amongst family, right? From the legislators to the community, people that I know. Rochester's like a new home to me. I've been up there about 12 times already. And what we want to do is build a facility that we could bring manufacturing back to Rochester and be able to take care of our seniors, right? That social determinants of health in an industry like this is no different. And we're actually putting together a white paper that shows that cannabis is much like not having emergency rooms or not having public, PCPs for patients. So it's allowed me to give me what God has put into me in terms of this health stuff. And I give all the kudos to John Sampson, who looked at me and said, hey, Cuomo's about to close some hospitals. I'm putting you in charge of this health thing for the Senate. And it's put me in places like Brookdale, and it's allowed me to run for office, and now I'm in the medical cannabis business. So, you know, when I tell you I owe that man on your screen everything, for believing me, it's that trust he's put in me, and this is where I'm at right now. So I'm enjoying it.
You know, by the way, I'm putting my resume out there that I still need a job. All right, so as long as they
don't hire him for cannabis, because he'll be using the supplies.
Listen, don't get high in your own supply. That's
Right.
rule number one, Notorious B.I.G. Learn that song right away.
No.
And I just told you I've never smoked in my life. You think I'm
What?
stop now?
I didn't say. He didn't say. They have all types. They have the strip. They have the gummy. They have this. They have.
Oh, no, he said he's bringing some to the studio next week. You didn't hear?
Yeah. I might just drop it off because I'm gonna drop it off ahead of time. So when y'all start the show, y'all can pull it up and say, you know what, this was dropped by Air Wellness. So I'm gonna bring y'all a seltzer, a gummy, and some rub. And so that way, you know, it's okay.
There you go. Right. You know, so it's very, very excited. We're talking to Kerry Edwards from Air Wellness, just to let you know about the positive usage of cannabis, getting it to your creating your own dispensary, your own company, what that look like, investing in the market, being part of an $800 million company, talking about cannabis and the positive effect, and hoping
and also educating people
and helping our non-believer in the studio start becoming a believer on the positive effects of cannabis. You know, it's awesome talking to you as always. And make sure you go back to Brookdale and say hello to some of your peoples over there, man.
I actually was there today, and the interesting story is that when I left Brookdale, they were having problems with the landlord in that community. And somehow, some way, the landlord called me and asked me to broker a conversation with Brookdale. So I think that for the years of 7 Hegeman and all these things, 525 Rockaway, that we're going to find a good place to get workers some housing and stuff. So it's funny, like every time I try to get away from that place, they draw me back. So it's so interesting. I was literally there this morning.
That means that your effect was very powerful. Yeah, right? And you leave a mark. Listen, I told you, you for a person who never ran for office at that high level, right, to come in where you came in for bar president, you there's no slouch. I don't know what you're talking about. So a lot of people believed in your work and what it is that you're doing. As do I. That's why I'm looking at that stock right now, and seeing, you know, what can be done in terms of the stock and see what's going on, right? So, you know, it's a pleasure, right? So looking forward to hearing from you. Looking forward to seeing you next week right here on the Village Radio Talk Show.
Well,
thank you, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, did John make it back yet? Because I know he's having a problem with his computer. John, you have any partner words for Carrie?
Does he hear? No.
Can you hear John?
Nope. He might not.
Okay. All right, Carrie. So we talk.
Yes, sir. Good seeing you guys.
In the studio. Make sure you come to the studio. Come with the stuff.
I will. Thank you.
All right, John. You heard that? John, you heard that?
Yeah, I got you, babe. All right, brother, man. Thank you.
All
right. I'll see y'all next week. I'll drop the package off next week.
I appreciate that.
All right.
Please do.
There's 5 of us in the studio, by the way.
No problem. I'll see y'all soon.
Right? Don't worry, Dr. Bright, don't worry, we just share.
No, and listen, John, I'm gonna send you some rubs for Hazra too. So I'll get everybody in.
All right.
All right, Gary.
See y'all soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. So the single parent. So just really excited to you know, I think let's just run the 3 commercials back to back, right? So first of all, ladies and gentlemen, Single Parent University, brought to you by the Single Parent University, where it's about helping young people, helping single parents, developing positive skills to help them with the young people, help them grow. If you need, it's all about personal development, mindful development, mindful parenting, support seminar, financial management, nutrition and wellness. So there's free childcare session when you come, transportation, social support hub, resume and cover letter, career exploration, and registration. Call 779-6767 or text SBU to 71441. Again, that's the single parent university. All right. We're also brought to you by the
name is Teresa Harris. I've been going to Global Police for 5 years.
Grace Family Social Daycare. No, the commercial is fine. The one you're running is fine.
My name is Teresa Harris. I've been going to Global Police for 5 years. It's a nice place. The people and the staff and everybody in here is very nice. They help us with little things, and I'm glad to be here.
What kind of activities you do?
Dancing. Sometimes I'm an art teacher. We do art. We do different things. We help each other out.
So, what's your name?
Lillian Williams.
Lillian Williams. So, Miss Williams, tell us a little bit about the social daycare. What is it like for you?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, since I've been here, I've been treated like I was an angel. Mm-hmm. You know, they treat me nice. They have respect for us. You know, they take us out, and they make sure that, you know, we are taken care of good. They give us, you know, Miss Jean and Miss Robert. No, them two old buzzers. That's one. No, them two ladies there, with that Jean one there and that one there, they
The
are
staff.
sweet.
We're talking about the staff.
They
So
sweet
what would you say to somebody who is thinking about coming? What would you tell that person?
Come. They would enjoy this. We would be glad to have them. Invite them and let them see.
Tell us about the activities. Tell me some of the activities you do during the day?
We do bingo, we do keno, we do arts and crafts. We do the point. Like they have people come in, and she is one of them.
Right. So tell us, what do you enjoy most about the site?
What I enjoy, the people. We like family. I really love family here.
Okay.
You could get a better circus.
Thank you.
John? Jesus, like, you don't care about
Yeah,
money. Okay.
So, just to remind you that we're brought to you by the Grace Family Adult Social Daycare. So come out, send an email, ask questions. Grace Family ASD, as you can see at our sister Golden Fleece, how our seniors are enjoying themselves. We also brought to you by the Parent Guardian Workshop. Make sure that Forum in Queens, we have the office there in Queens, on Merritt Boulevard coming out, which will be
Next Saturday.
I'm telling you, why don't you just do the commercial? I'm telling you, do the commercial. You're looking at me like, so it's 11444, as in 114-44 Merritt Boulevard in Queens, New York. Next week, Saturday from 12 to 3. Brought to you by the Stillwater Art Community Focus. And again, for all parents needing help, especially younger kids who are having issues in school, whether it's special education, ENL, whether it's early childhood literacy, math, meet authors, meet experts, where we'll be talking about those issues that might help you educate your child better and get the needs of your child even that much better. Se habla español y un poco creole, aussi. So all those questions just come out and follow up. All right. So John with us? Yeah, John. So we were talking about some of the things that were happening in the news, and one of them is the Kim Potter, the police officer in 2021.
That got released.
Right. In 2021, she mistakenly pulled her handheld instead of her
That's the one that was training someone.
No, she was a trainer.
Yeah,
Who you
she was
talking about,
training
Roger?
someone. The police officer that was
No,
training.
she wasn't training someone. She was a trainer. She was a trainer before. She was a trainer before. So it's like people say, if you're a trainer and you train officers, you really don't know the difference.
Oh, she was just released.
Yeah, she was just released there. She was in the process of training. She was a trainer, and then people held her even more culpable because she should have known better for killing 20-year-old Wright, Dante Wright, for a pullover on what would have been amounted to what is it? Amounted to just a ticket. A ticket.
But you know what? In that case, Roger, that to me, that for the officer, that was purely an accident.
Yeah, it was, but I don't know. I think like John. Sometimes when I think about the law, right, I think about like I see a kid in the hallway cutting class, right? Am I really gonna chase down that kid through the stairs all over the world because you're cutting class? Versus I see a kid with a knife and a gun, right? Or fighting or attempting to hurt somebody, banging on every. What is my reaction to something that is happening?
That's when you're rationalizing things.
Well, I think that, but I don't know that I'm rationalizing. I really do look at it.
On looking at what's more important. Like you said, cutting, which if they're cutting just to talk to their friends is one thing compared to someone who have a weapon.
Right, but I'm just saying in terms of I have
not having a license plate, your windows being tinted, or running a red light or running a stop sign or whatever, compared to somebody who just ran down somebody, murdered somebody with their car and kept it moving.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm talking about, John. I think like
the tier.
Granted, that's why she didn't serve as much, as much time as Volpe, Anthony Volpe, who did the Abner Louima thing out there in Staten Island. Or I think that the officer who also choked out Eric Garnes, he's also doing a lot of time too, right?
No,
well.
Who? Eric Gardner?
Yeah. No, they weren't.
He's not doing any time.
Oh, he was found not guilty, right? Yeah. No, not. I'm sorry. Derek Gavin.
He lost his job.
Who lost his job?
The guy who the officer in the Eric Gardner case.
Yeah. No, I was talking about the guy in the George Floyd.
Right? You mean Derek Chauvin?
Yeah. He's serving 25 to life.
Not 25 to life. He's serving 22 years.
Yeah. 22 years flat or 22 years to life?
22 years, so you probably do 85% if he's doing federal time.
Yeah, so it's like, what's that, 15 years plus, right? For that, and I think there are a couple of civil rights violations that's involved there. The only flip side the only negative side that I'm having to all of this, and I'm saying this over and over again.
You know who else died? I want to add to that too.
The only flip side that I'm having is that though it is horrible, the amount of police shooting of a unarmed black man pales in comparison to the amount of murders that black men are doing to their own black men. And I'm not detracting. There's nothing beautiful.
Right.
There's nothing positive.
Right.
About anyone dying. Nothing. But we're not going crazy.
as hardcore. Mm-hmm.
when too many of our black men are killing each other.
Not only black men, our young folks are killing each
Well,
other.
yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm specifically addressing black men only because the major police brutality piece takes on marches, Million Man March, 200,000 uproar, protests, blah, 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 when a white officer or an officer kills a black man.
Or a woman.
No, right, a black person.
Uh-huh.
Right? But we don't get up in arms as much when we kill each other far more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like it's not even like 100 to 1 or even 1,000 to 1
mm-hmm.
in a year.
Mm-hmm.
In a 10-year period, you might have 10, 15 police shooting on what is it? Now, what do you call that shooting? What do you call it, John? When the shooting is unjust. What do you call it? When it's I forgot what the term with the police use when it's a justified shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you might have 10, maybe 15
mm-hmm.
in a 10-year period.
Right.
In that same 10-year period, you have 20,000 deaths
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of us killing each other.
Right.
But we are focused on the 10 to 15 and not on the 10,000.
Right.
So that's what I'm grieved by that.
So I have to agree with you 100%. Like people are not up in arms, excited, or it's as though you become numb to hearing that this person got murdered or that person got murdered, and it's just the continuation every day. Okay, 5 during the week that the kids were out on break. I stopped counting how many each day. There was a certain amount, and that really does something to individuals, their psyche. It really does. So that you become, it's not numb, but it's like a daily normal, and that's not normal. Just like during COVID, when you were hearing, oh, this person died or that person died, so everything is.
It becomes the norm. It's the norm for our community.
And that's
it's a norm. It's associated. It's something that is expected. Violence and violent crimes are expected in our community and turning on one another. And when the person of the opposite ethnic group kills one of our individuals, we become up in arms. But I think the tide has been changing. You have a lot of people who are, a lot of organizations marching against gun violence in our communities and violent crimes. So people are realizing that.
Right.
People have always realized that. But you know what? It is not as sexy, the media. You know, the media doesn't talk about those anti-violent groups that are really talking about don't commit black on black crimes. You know, let's uplift our community, because they don't want to. It doesn't fit the narrative of what's going on in our community. You know, they talk about, you know, you listen to Fox and they always talk about crime this, crime that. They don't want to talk about the positive things that people of color are doing in the community. They just want to concentrate on the whole criminal aspect of society because it fits their narrative. You know, they want to use with the boogeyman. Crime is the boogie person. We want to use it to basically push you in a corner of fear. So, you know, you want stricter gun laws, which we definitely should have. And I mean, I don't mean stricter gun laws. I mean bail reform should be a lot stricter. Lot to have the judges consider more than just whether a person has the ability to come back to court. Look at their prior criminal record. My problem with that, with all of that, is too many judges have their own stereotypes and idiosyncrasies that they use when they make their determination. Their whole political persuasion, their whole ideology comes into play when decisions are being made. Everybody wants everything based upon the meritocracy. I have no problem, but when you start using your own ideology, your own beliefs, making decisions, we're never ever going to have a fair share unless you have people who have gone through the same things that you have gone through, who can sit there in judgment and be open-minded. A lot of our jurists are not open-minded. We as people aren't open-minded because we use our experiences. We look through things we look through society through the lenses of our own experience instead of being totally open-minded about looking at these situations.
From a holistic point of view.
You know, we started off the show talking about Jerry Springer and how he made millions from looking at the negative components of life, right? And made a fortune from it. And I'm just thinking, I'm wondering the same thing, right? This is the same concept, right? We just love the look. CNN made so much money from Donald Trump, right? With his buffoonery, right? Fox News knowingly perpetrated a fraud, right? Knowingly perpetrated a fraud with Donald Trump that they paid almost $1 billion for, and it's not done yet, right? And I'm not even talking about his level of presidency, right? That's not even the conversation I'm having. It's just simply put, knowing all of these things that we constantly, constantly keep pushing these issues. I know we're wrapping up, so I have two comments before I forget anything else. One, I know I told Ashley and Carlson happy belated birthday. This week also was my Auntie Clarine's birthday, so I'll make sure that I tell her happy birthday as well. Did a community walk this weekend with the head of the local precinct and also some of my community members and the assembly people, right? And that community walk, John, was so wonderful. People thought that we were running for office. I'm like, no, none of us are running for office. We're just coming out of the community saying hello. Beautiful thing. It was supposed to be 2 hours, John. We ended up being outside for 4.5 hours. Just doing the walkthrough from going through the community and just saying hello to people. So I just want to say kudos to everybody who's listening. Everybody did that. We have
came out too.
This weekend we have the block cleanup. So if you have a block, check out the Community Board 17 website. Make sure that next weekend you're putting on your schedule to be at the Parent Guardian Forum out there in Queens, and there's the one in Brooklyn as well on May 13th. So you know a little bit more about that as well. And the information 646-504-5778 on
the seniors.
on the seniors and senior social health. Yeah. By the way, John, you didn't tell us, how did your daughter do this basketball season? You said she was hurt, right? Was she hurt?
Oh, they didn't make the playoffs.
They didn't make the playoffs?
But the Knicks did.
That's right.
Congratulations to the Knicks.
We're so proud of Dr. Bryan that she didn't say move on with the sports. So we appreciate the high five. Good job. No.
All right, villagers, thanks again for a great Thursday night.
Yes. Have an amazing rest of the weekend coming up. Be safe out there. Go out, join Mr. Daly. Come on out. Do something in the community. Check up on your peoples. Check up on the seniors. Check up on the young folks.
Check on somebody.
Yeah.
Check on yourself. Don't forget that too.
And show love. Yeah. That's it. That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, viewing, sharing, participating in the village. Right here on 92.1 GDFM, where we're dedicated to empowering the community to live a healthy, safe, and financially capable life through education. helping each one of us in realizing our dreams at any age, at any point, starting from today. But success is not just spoken, it is done. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Looking forward to hearing from you. God willing, next week.
Be safe. Bye-bye.